If you live on a board of a condo association in Virginia, consider this. The roof is leaking, the contractor says it needs a full replacement, and unfortunately the price tag is $240,000. And your reserve fund has $38,000 in it, give or take a few cents. It happens to communities more than anyone would like to admit. So how does this happen? It doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly over years because the board never had a clear picture of where their money was going and what was coming down the road. And 9 times out of 10, the software they were using couldn't even help prevent it. It just wasn't even in question. My name is Joe Braun. I'm the founder of Solume, an all-in-one HOA and condo association management platform. And in this video, I want to talk to specifically Virginia boards, whether you're self-managed or working with a property manager or somewhere in between, about what HOA software should actually be doing for your community in 2026. Because there's no shortage of platforms out there. Dues collection, violation tracking, homeowner portals, communication tools, vendor management, document storage. Most software will check those boxes on a features list. And we're going to cover all of that, but here's what I found after talking to hundreds of boards. There's one feature that almost every board overlooks when they're shopping for software, and it's arguably the most important one. It's reserve study integration, and most platforms don't have it. They don't even touch it the way that they should. A reserve study isn't just a document that you file away. It's a financial roadmap, and if your software isn't connected to it, you're essentially driving with a paper map in a world that has GPS. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what features matter, what Virginia compliance looks like in practice, and how AI is changing what boards can do without calling an attorney, and how to choose a platform based on what actually is broken in your community. So let's dive into it. Most boards start shopping for software after something breaks. A special assessment gets announced, the treasurer burns out and quits midterm, you fired your property management company for the 3rd time in 5 years, someone threatens legal action over a violation, and then the board looks up and realizes that they've been running the community out of spreadsheets and personal text messages, maybe if you're lucky a shared inbox, and maybe just some prayer. So let's start with the real question. What problems are you actually trying to solve? Financial management is table stakes. Every platform worth looking at should handle dues collection and expense tracking and basic reporting. That's the floor, not the ceiling. And as I said, where most platforms fall short is reserve study integration, and that is a big one. Don't ignore that. Think about it like this. Your reserve fund is a savings account for things that your community owns together, right? The roof, elevators, parking lots, pool equipment, all of it has a lifespan. All of it will eventually cost money to repair or replace. A reserve study tells you what you have, when it's going to need attention, and how much you should be setting aside every year so that the money is there when you need it. Your software should be connected to that data, not just storing a PDF of it, actually using it, showing you whether today's funding decisions are going to cause a problem 5 years from now. Solume takes your reserve study data and makes it live. Dynamic projections, real-time funding status, a dashboard that actually tells you where you stand instead of making you guess. A homeowner portal is the second thing that changes everything for boards. Residents should be able to submit architectural requests, review documents, make payments, and get answers to basic questions, all without texting the board members at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. If your current system can't do that, it wasn't built for the way people actually live today. Communication tools need to do more than just send emails. You need records, what was sent, when, and to whom, because when a homeowner files a complaint that you denied their deck extension but approved the exact same thing for the neighbor 2 streets over, you need a paper trail that tells the complete story. Every notice sent, every decision made, every date and timestamp. Without that, you're not defending a decision, you're actually just defending your memory. And let's talk about vendor management, because vendor management becomes critical as your community ages. Maintenance requests, bids, work orders, all of it should live in one place. And ideally, The repair work your vendors do should connect back to your reserve study line items. That parking lot reseal, it should pull right from the bucket in your capital plan, not just disappear into some operating expense. Here's something else that most software companies won't tell you. Most HOA platforms were built for property managers, people who spend 40 hours a week inside the system. Well, let's be honest, if you're lucky, they spend 40 hours a week inside the system. They have years of experience navigating every module, every menu, every workaround. The problem is that if you're watching this, you're probably not a property manager. You're a volunteer. You have full-time jobs, right? You get elected to the board because you care about your neighborhood, not because you wanted a second career in community association management. Software that was built for professionals and handed to volunteers is sort of like giving the keys to a data center and the algorithm code to someone who just wants to post a picture to Instagram. Self-managed boards need financial tools that don't require an accounting degree, an interface that makes sense the first time you log in, a homeowner portal that handles residents' questions so that you're not the only point of contact, and reserve study integration that's front and center, because without a property manager tracking your capital planning, the visibility just falls on you. Now, for communities that are professionally managed, those that are professionally managed, the conversation is a little bit different, but it's just as important. Here's something that I've noticed. Communities tend to rotate through property managers about as frequently as frat boys rotate through girlfriends. Property managers come and go. Contracts end, relationships change, management companies get acquired, and staff turns over. And every single time that happens, there's a data transition. Financial records, violation history, vendor contacts, reserve study data. Where does it all live? If it lives inside your management company's system, you're at their mercy every time something changes. Getting your own records out can turn into weeks of requests and follow-ups and incomplete exports inside dozens of CSV files. And that's your community's data, your history, and your money. The smarter play is to have your own platform running in parallel, your internal record that belongs to the community, not whoever just happens to manage it. Property managers come and go. Your documentation shouldn't. You need to have a data set that lives inside your community and withstands whatever property managers are coming and going, right? And for communities that are self-managed or considering bringing operations in-house, yes, Solume can absolutely replace a property manager for the right community. That's exactly what the system was built to do. So now let me talk a little bit about AI for a minute, because it's worth understanding what it actually does in this context and what it doesn't do. Homeowners and boards ask the same type of questions constantly. Can we restrict short-term rentals? What's the process for approving architectural requests? What does Virginia law require around reserve funding? What does our governing documents actually say about fence approvals? These are questions that used to require either a board member to dig through a 100-page document or a phone call to an attorney at $200 an hour just to get a basic answer. Solume Assistant changes that. It reads your governing documents, your community's policies, and relevant state statutes and answers questions in plain language. Ask it a question and get an answer in seconds. For example, does our HOA allow fences over 6 feet? Solume Assistant pulls your covenants and tells you exactly what they say. Now, here's the disclaimer. Don't be naive. AI is a tool, not a decision maker. Even the best AI platforms get things wrong sometimes. Think of it like a very well-read paralegal who has memorized every page of your governing documents and knows Virginia law inside and out. AI is incredibly useful for research, for pulling the right clause, or answering the question at 9 o'clock when your attorney won't pick up. But just like a paralegal, it's the first pass, not the final word. Anything with real legal or financial consequences still needs a licensed professional to review it. When you need an attorney, you need an attorney. What Solume Assistant does is it saves you the $200 an hour call for questions that don't require one. Also, AI and automation handles the repetitive stuff that quietly burns boards out. Dues reminders, late fee calculation, financial report generation, things that used to eat hours every month run on their own. Small boards feel the most because they often are the ones that are doing everything manually. And compliance deadline tracking means your software reminds you before you miss something. Annual meeting notices, reserve study updates, and compliance deadline tracking means your software reminds you before you miss something. Annual meeting notices, reserve study update windows, state filing deadlines. You shouldn't have to remember all of that. Now, our AI features are about to get some serious upgrades to its capabilities. But just as the argument goes throughout the economy, this isn't supposed to remove humans from the equation, but it sure does make your job much easier. All right, Virginia, let's talk specifics about your HOA and condo laws. Virginia HOA boards operate under either the Property Owners Association Act or the Virginia Condominium Act, depending on your community's type. HOAs fall under the POAA, and condo associations obviously fall under the Condominium Act. If you're not sure which one applies to you, well, that's your first task. Virginia actually requires reserve studies. A lot of people don't know that. Most HOA and condo associations must conduct a full study at least once every 5 years and review it annually. The 2024 legislature actually tightened those requirements even further. What Virginia doesn't prescribe is a specific funding percentage the way that some other states do. But make no mistake, the mandate to have a current study and follow its recommendations is real, and ignoring it can cause both legal and financial exposure. Virginia law holds HOA board members to the same fiduciary standard as any corporate board of directors. That means acting in good faith and in the best interest of the community. Chronic underfunding of reserves when the data was available and the board chose to ignore it is a hard position to defend when something fails and homeowners start asking questions. Think of it like this. Virginia, their driving laws, right? The following distance law doesn't tell you exactly how many feet to leave between you and the car in front of you. What it does say is that you have to maintain a distance that is, reasonable and prudent, given the conditions. So if you rear end someone because you were 2 feet behind their bumper in a rainstorm, claiming that the law didn't give you a specific feet that you have to follow behind is not going to hold up. The standard isn't a specific rule. It's whether you acted reasonably. Virginia's fiduciary standards for board members works the exact same way. A current documented reserve study is your evidence that the board is planning responsibly. But evidence sitting in a filing cabinet doesn't prevent the rear-end collision. It just gives you something to show the judge afterwards. That's the difference between storing a reserve study and actually using one. Solume takes your reserve study data and makes it live. Real-time funding status, dynamic projections, a dashboard that tells your board exactly where you stand today and what's coming. So when a component is approaching the end of its useful life and the money isn't there yet, you see it coming with enough time to do something about it. You're not reacting to a crisis, you're actually steering around one. That's what reasonable and prudent looks like in practice when it comes to reserve studies. And if you're a condo association, specifically, the Virginia Condominium Act has additional requirements around reserve study disclosures and resale packages. If your reserves are underfunded, that shows up in a resale disclosure. It affects your ability to sell units. Buyers, lenders look at it, and it really can kill a deal pretty quickly if you're underfunded. Now, let's look at another state statute. Meeting notice requirements in Virginia are set partially by state law and partially by your governing documents. Annual meetings, elections, special assessments, all of those have notice timelines. Miss them and you're exposed. Financial disclosure is also something boards underestimate. Virginia law gives homeowners the right to access financial records. If your system can't generate a clear, readable report on request, you'll spend your time defending the numbers instead of thinking through the best strategy of how to put the numbers to use. Architectural review processes have to follow your own governing documents exactly. Software with workflow tracking creates a documented paper trail. Requests submitted, reviewed, approved, or denied, and communicated. That protects you when someone challenges a decision. Listen, every software is going to show you an impressive demo. Every platform looks great in a controlled environment. So here's the framework I'd actually use. Start with what is broken right now. Look at what you actually need, not what might be nice to have. What is actually causing your board pain every single month? If your board spends hours every month answering the same homeowner questions, you need a strong portal with self-service AI access. That's your priority. If your treasurer is overwhelmed or you've had a hard time filling the role, you need financial tools that a non-accountant can actually use. Look for a clean dashboard, clean interfaces, clean reports, and a good onboarding support. If your community has deferred maintenance or you're nervous about a special assessment, reserve study integration is a non-negotiable. Your software needs to connect your current finances to your long-term capital obligations. Again, I'll reiterate this. Solume is the only all-in-one platform on the market that includes reserve study integration. If your board members aren't particularly tech savvy, live support matters more than features count. Software that requires a certification course to operate won't get used, and software that doesn't get used is just a dumb expense. Now, let me clarify something on cost, because most boards think about the software cost wrong. They look at the monthly subscription number and stop there. But the real question is the total cost of operations. A platform that runs $200 a month but eliminates $600 a month in management fees or attorney consultations for questions Solume Assistant can answer in 3 seconds, that's not an additional cost, that's actually a savings. Also, when comparing software costs, understand that many platforms have hidden costs. They might say $2 per door to get you into the platform, but then you'll discover that most of the tools you actually need have additional fees on top of that. Solume does not price that way. Our fees are 100% all-inclusive. And when you're evaluating demos, which we're happy to give you, push on reserve study integration. Ask them to show you what happens when a component gets updated. Ask them how the software handles the gap between what's funded and what's needed. Most platforms will start to get real quiet right about those questions. Reserve funding projections, dynamic capital planning, live funding status, that is not a checkbox most platforms can check. It's one of the things that makes Solume genuinely different from everything else on the market. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Most HOA software was built to organize your present or, document your past. The best software is built to protect your future. Reserve study integration, transparent financial reporting, compliance tracking, and tools that actually work for volunteers, not just professional property managers, those are the things that separate platforms that solve problems from platforms that just move the chaos from your inbox to a dashboard. If you're a Virginia board looking at your options, we'd love to show you what Solume does. The link in the description will get you a free 15-minute discovery call. No pitch, no pressure, I promise. We'll look at where your community is and tell you honestly whether or not we think Solume can help solve some of your problems. If you found this helpful, subscribe. We break down HOA management and compliance topics like this regularly, and we try to do it in a way that actually makes sense. Drop a comment below or tell me what your board's biggest software headache is right now. I read every comment. See you in the next video.